Arsenal 5-0. Nottingham Forest. What a big result. Shame I couldn't watch it on the TV, though. Seb, did you enjoy it in your other country where you pay almost no money to watch all the football that I can't watch for paying all of my money here in the country where the football's happening in? Hey, what now?
Yeah, it actually surprised me when I moved over. I mean, obviously the first thing you benefit from is there's no Saturday blackout for English football. There's no Saturday blackout at all. So I can watch the 3 p.m. kickoffs. But also, I think, and these are rough estimates, because they seem to vary, but I pay about €45 a month for my Sky subscription. That's all the Premier League and Bundesliga games, with the exception of a couple of Bundesliga games, which are on DAZN, which also carries all the European football. So Italy, Spain, France, like all the major leagues, bit of Eredivisie on there as well. And I think I totted up the other day. I think I save about 55 euros a month on what I used to spend. Which is, and I remember there's a time
when you get
when,
all the football. It's not even just that you pay less.
I get it all.
You get it all.
I think when you leave England, or when you spend some time with people who are used to a different football culture on television, the idea that you're blocked out of certain games is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
One of the things that German football gets really right is that the scheduling of Zweite Bundesliga games and Bundesliga games are in slots that don't overlap.
Yeah.
So you don't have a situation where, for instance, if I wanted to watch a Hamburg or St. Pauli game, then I have to not watch a Bundesliga game. Yeah. So ordinarily across a weekend, there is a sort of a tea time Zweite Bundesliga game, a late Bundesliga game, a lunchtime Saturday Zweite Bundesliga game, and so on and so forth throughout the weekend. Yeah. So you actually get the proper time slots, and also you get every single game that's played in those two divisions in Germany is on television every single week.
Can I make the point, Seb? You said already when you move somewhere else, you start to realize how ridiculous it is that you don't get it. The reason I don't like it is, you've just used Germany as an example, where famously fan engagement in football is very high and positive. And the fact that all the Bundesliga games are on television hasn't made a difference to that, right? So that's because as a result of the smart scheduling, like you said, not impossible for that to happen. Here we should acknowledge that there are more leagues in England, and that's often a thing which is cited as a problem, is that there are 4 professional tiers, and below that there's still non-league, and there's all these other considerations, is what they would say. But the thing that frustrates me about it is that these decisions were taken by just random dudes decades ago, like on the basis of almost zero information. And I'm not saying these are exactly the same people, but similar decisions taken earlier than that. Football not for women, decided by similar type of people, or other stupid things. What other stupid football decisions are there? I'm sure they can think of some other ones. Anyway, my point being that it seems to be no desire to have another look at these things that were decided, years and years and years ago in entirely different scenarios by people who were skeptical of technology or skeptical of equality, or, and yet we hold them up as they are these,
Well, there's a big thing now, Joe, with like club specific output. So like Scottish Premiership, I think they just signed a deal for until 2029 or something like that. It's just as a load of stuff is starting to happen. I think it's probably inevitable that Amazon or Apple or someone, Google, will end up buying all the rights, and because everything's changed now. You can watch on your phone. We all know what mobile phones are and how iPhones work. But then, so that's one thing, and they've got loads of cash reserves where they can do that sort of thing. But like in Scotland, it might work. So Wrexham's interesting as well. Like the way they were talking about wanting to have that model where they can output through their own club thing, so everyone can watch every single game. And it might get to the point where in the future that's what happens. That every club has their own individual output, and it's a bit of a thing in Scotland at the moment because obviously Celtic and Rangers get the vast majority of views and bring the most eyes to that entire league. So, but in Sky they have the rights to it. Sky Sports in Scotland have the rights to all the games, but they don't use all the games that they have rights to. So there's games that go just unused during that entire season because, I mean, frankly, people don't want to watch Dundee United versus Hibs. Like, they just don't. The numbers are so small, and I've seen the numbers. They are really small compared to what you get against Rangers and Celtic. So you're actually better off showing something else in that time slot for the amount of eyes you get onto it from that other thing, which is another weird thing, because maybe it'd be better for the clubs if they then had their own individual bit, because they still get eyes on it, but it's just not as much as you get for other things.
Well, because also, like my formative experiences with the game were in the stadium. And no matter whether I agree with it or not, like over time, future generations, like it matters how much television coverage a team gets, because if you say, for instance, you're a distant supporter, you live in a different continent. Your decision or your level of engagement with a team is going to be dictated by how easy it is to watch the team itself. You can't say to someone now, given the choices and Netflix and given the kind of the alternatives that you have now across a weekend or a Tuesday or Wednesday night, you can't say that your only interaction with the team is going to be when you go through the turnstiles and take a seat. And like, I do think one of the key differences, I won't speak for Scotland because I don't know enough about Scottish football, but difference between England and Germany in terms of football is agency for fans. Like in England, you can have a situation where a TV company schedules Bournemouth against Manchester United at 8 o'clock on a Monday night. And people on Twitter complain about it and everyone gets upset about it. And people talk about how much money it costs them and nobody listens. Never really makes any difference. Like nobody actually pays any attention. In Germany, the fan is a stakeholder, quite literally, because of 50+1. And so you cannot do, first of all, you have the organization of the time slots, which are predetermined. But also you cannot distort the game in quite the same way. You cannot look after kind of commercial interests beyond a certain point before you start feeling some pushback. And that kind of control, that sort of agency guards against or cracks back against some of the things that Joe's been describing, which is quite right. Like you get people with opinions about the game 60 years ago, like can't show this because it will damage this. Okay, there's no evidence to suggest that. And yet still. I
think about the thing you said once, Seb, about like why this is actually part of the Tifo book, a chapter in the Tifo book. Why are there 11 players on a football team?
Yeah.
There's no reason. There just is. Like, because it was decided 100 years ago. And now it's just like that forever. Why are goals the size they are, despite the fact that, like, the average height of people has changed dramatically over the last 100 years? There's no reason. They just are because they always have been. And this kind of thinking, it just drives me insane. The idea that there is, like, I'm sure there is a desire to look at it again from people within various organizations. And I don't mean to hold specific people to account over it. I just think it frustrates me when something like this happens, the Arsenal Forest game on a Sunday. We know the reason for it is because the game that was supposed to be televised then was moved to Saturday. There is a reason as to why. It's not an unusual thing that there's a 2 p.m. game on a Sunday that isn't shown. It's just normally that there would be another one that is shown. But every time this happens, it does bring these sorts of issues to light. I wish that there was like a concerted attempt to look at this again, to try to find smarter solutions to it, as they have done in Germany. We appreciate the point, of course, like we said before, that there are more considerations here. There are more professional leagues. There's more non-league football. Their argument would be that there is more to consider than there would be in some other European countries. But I don't think that means that it's impossible. And also, the starting point isn't neutral. That's the issue. Like, their worry would be, to change something now might make something worse. I think what's happening is already bad. I don't care if there's a different kind of bad. Let's have a different kind of bad and see how it goes.
But Joe, also, like, it's bigger than that as well, because like, how many times this season have we seen fixtures either moved or played in slots, which mean that away supporters quite literally cannot get home on the train that night? Yeah. It's outrageous. Yeah. Like, it's not even about change. It's about thinking. It's just about thinking, right? The train network in England, sorry, it is. I'm not saying the German one is much better. Sure. It's actually, fallen off too. I'm not being that guy. It's just, it's bad. It's overpriced. It costs an awful lot of money to go from one end of the country to another.
The train fans in this country are going to be furious with you now.
Do it. Because, and yet no one ever takes any of these things into consideration. Like, okay, I'll maybe get a hotel when you go to watch football that night and then come back the next day. Okay, well, that's another £200-300, isn't it? And also, if you're going by yourself, that's expensive enough. What about, I said earlier, like, my formative experiences came from going to stadiums. Well, that was a lot easier because it was a lot cheaper for people to take me.
Well,
like,
because you were driven in a Rolls Royce, weren't you? That was pulled by 17
I did.
horses.
And then also, like, when I say I went to the game, like, a helicopter kind of flew above the pitch and just dangled me above the center circle. Yeah. Like, it's like a kind of very lo-fi version of that Mission Impossible scene when he infiltrates it was like
you
that.
were the precursor to the spider cam.
Yeah. But imagine
just float like a spider on the pitch.
Imagine the cost. Like, if you're a father and you want to take your daughter, your son, are you kidding me? Like,
But whose fault is this though? Because like it's not like the broadcasters, they have a product that they want to sell, and like for the 2,000 away fans that are traveling, it doesn't really matter to them because they're going to get like maybe 300,000 views. Actually, the TV views aren't not as big as you think they are in the UK. It's weird. So they're looking at that, and they're part of their schedule. Like they're not thinking, what if there's a little boy there, he won't be able to
look.
get home.
Look, I want to watch the
that.
football, and I don't care what anybody else needs or wants. This is about me and what I can legally watch in my home.
Well, that's the thing. There are ways to watch.
There are no
these
ways,
games.
JJ. There are zero ways.
No, of course. I mean, I wish there were. If only there were, that would be a good thing.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.